Today on Primetime Local News, I'm joined by Ichor Blood Services CEO Mike Kuzmiskis as his company has recently announced plans for a 3-day testing clinic that will be coming to Lloydminster on February 14th. Mike, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me on.
So your company was recently recognized for its work in Lacrete, which is an isolated community in northern Alberta. And a quote from you, which has since gone somewhat viral, is your labeling of the pandemic being over in Lacrete. So I guess my first question is, in a time where Alberta is seeing a higher positivity rate than ever before over the past 2 years, do you think it's important that your quote isn't taken out of the specific context of this 700 person community?
I think there's a few comments there. Obviously, you still have people in landing in hospital, you still have people landing in the ICU, and you still have people passing away. My first comment on your question would be the use of case counts as the metric right now. Okay. Just because someone's getting sick, we all have gotten sick in the past with various things. Just because someone's getting sick is not the end of the world. If vaccinated people can get COVID and they can test positive, you could have 100% vaccination rate and still have COVID cases through the roof. So using infection rates or case counts is not an accurate metric, and it's irresponsible, quite honestly. You want to stick to hospitalizations, things like that? Yes. Directly related to COVID, not from COVID. Sorry, not with COVID, but from COVID? Yes. I'm on board with that. In Lacrete, what you have is a case of small town, did not really follow many of the lockdown social isolation mandates, which means there was a lot of intermingling, like I used to like to use the church example on Sundays, everybody going to church on Sundays. So you're getting a lot of that transmission in the community. So we saw that. What came out of Lacrete that's very interesting is an 89% positivity rate for COVID antibodies among the unvaccinated. So these people have encountered COVID, they've successfully fought it off, and now they have very durable natural immunity. Now, the term natural immunity has been slammed all over the place, that it's some sort of anti-science and you wear a tin hat. But all I can do is point to the articles and the studies that come out that I've seen that talk about how it's significantly better, more durable, and longer lasting than vaccines. So if you have a community that's a small town community and you have a sample size of about a third of the community and you have an 89% positivity rate, you've, based on the government's own markers for herd immunity, you potentially have reached herd immunity in that community. And in my opinion, they're done. Now, I understand CBC saying it's irresponsible and people still need to be cautious. Sure. But continuing to put the fear of death into everybody for 2 years when it may not be warranted also isn't the right move. It's unbalanced. So those are my comments came from. In my opinion, from what I'm reading and what I'm seeing and seeing an 89% positivity, I think Lacrete is in very, very good shape. And that's where my comments came from.
For those who are interested in potentially getting a test, then Ichor Blood Services, of course, is a private company and you are charging for your testing services. So, for people who are interested, could you just speak to why it's so important to test for these antibodies and how or why maybe it's justified in spending $100 on the test?
Sure. So, and this is speaking to both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. Your protection against COVID-19 is directly related to antibody titers and the strength of the antibodies that your body has created, either against the vaccine or against natural infection. There's no threshold to indicate at what level your antibody titers mean safety and which level they don't, right? And that's a toss-up. But certainly if you're on the high end of the range where the test caps out at 250 units per mil, if you're on the high end, you have pretty good assurance that you have very good protection. So we've seen people come in, roughly 10% of vaccinated people come in that score 0 or very, very low on the antibody test. Now, obviously, we have people that come in that have never been vaccinated that have a 250 and are very well protected. So primarily, it's a gauge to see just how protected you are against COVID. And that may help you decide if you're going to go get the 4th shot. That may help you decide if you're not going to get the shot. It's just important to have information when you're making medical decisions. We are not guaranteeing, we are not talking or selling this as it's going to mean anything aside from personal information. This is not a free pass for anything. You don't get to go against government mandates, none of that. That's not what this is about. What the exercise is, though, as a community, is to see where your community is at as a whole. And based on recent comments from the Pfizer CEO saying vaccines are not effective against Omicron, and recent conversations from the WHO and European Union regulators saying that they are very hesitant to advise any further boosters due to compromising the risk of the immune system, you're kind of in a tough spot right now where the ones that we have don't work and the ones you might get aren't recommended. So checking to see if you have some natural immunity or checking to see what your levels are, potentially a good idea.
Thanks so much for your time today, Mike.
Yeah, not a problem.